Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, Goody, here. Hopefully, the other two co-hosts and Hall of Reed will be poking their heads in at some point. But the title of tonight's episode is The Bittersweet Rodeo, discussing the 27-26 loss to the Denver Broncos that occurred last night at Washington Northwest Stadium. But without further ado, Goody, what was your reaction to the game last night? Like, what were you feeling during that game?
Oh man, I gotta be honest. I was feeling good, man. I was feeling juiced. I was feeling pumped up. I was feeling the energy from the team. They came out with with the mindset. They were playing with their hair on fire. The home crowd was jumping. I know there was a lot of Denver fans in the building as well, but Washington was still there strong. So I just enjoyed the entire game from start to finish. I was just pumped up. It was really good, good football matchup. Obviously, stretching it out to overtime, going back-to-back games with overtime. It was just kind of even more a little bit ticked up there. But it would have been nice to really put the nail in the coffin with that completion at the end to McNichols from Mariota. But all in all, I definitely can't say I'm upset about the loss. It would have been better if we won, but it was a great game to watch.
It absolutely was. The way that this season has gone, you cannot be mad at it being competitive. Of course, you are upset. That's why it's called the Bittersweet Rodeo, because you feel good about how the team played based on comparing it to the games before. And you're like, okay, well, at least they were competitive. They made it a game. It was fun to watch. And you kind of saw a lot of what last season was like, where it was like this nail biter down to the end. And typically Washington last season, I know Dan Quinn loves to talk about those winning time moments, and Washington typically would be in those winning kind of situations. And it just seemed like last night it was very reminiscent of last year. Proud of the team and how they came out and performed. Because I put out the pre-ranking for Denver's defense going into that game. Like, they were second, third in passing yards and rushing yards allowed. Washington was able to have 143 rushing yards on the ground last night, where Denver coming in on average only gave up 87. Whereas Washington's defense, they only gave up 87 rushing yards to the Denver Broncos. I thought that the game plan coming in for both sides of the football was fantastic. Washington had 30 first downs to Denver's 23. On third downs, we were 8 of 17, whereas Denver was 7 of 15. So a little bit south of 50% for Denver's offense, which is in the right direction for this team defensively. And this is what kind of my point is about playing Jaden this year, is you can say that the injury concern is a legit thing, and of course it is. But like, you want to end this season this way, building in the right direction, to know that what has happened up until now isn't the case for what this football team is. And I think that's what last night was an indicator towards. As much as how many injuries that we do have, I saw Benjamin Albright tweet out, like, Washington really took it to them. They really made him handle things. And it goes, and he was giving credit to Washington as well as he should be. But that being said, I mean, that is literally, we are a fingertip away from winning that football game against a team that is now 10-2. So hat tip to the boys for doing well, but obviously we didn't get the win like we wanted to. But, like, who were some players, in your opinion, that stood out in last night's game?
Yeah, there's actually going to be quite a few, but I guess, off the top, you can go with the easy one. Scary Terry being back on the field, suited up, ready to go to war, home field. He just continues to prove again and again and again why you don't think twice about paying that man his money and having him, on your team. Because every time he steps blades of grass, he just performs. So yeah, definitely he exceeded my expectations, even though I don't really doubt that he can do that kind of stuff. But again, just time and time, just showing off of injury how he could perform and impact this offense. I'm going to go Traylon Burks. I was very happy to see him kind of get his have a moment, a big moment. Crazy catch, crazy play, even from where I was watching on the TV. I do wear glasses. I wasn't wearing them, so I wasn't sure if he came down with it or not. But when I saw the crowd going crazy, I was like, no way. He really did just kind of he mossed him, man. Like that was beautiful to see. That's gonna give him a lot of a lot of boost here in Washington with his new journey. Who else stood out for me to keep it a little short here? Um, I would say Mikey Sanders still stood out on the outside, playing like very, very comfortable. He just looked like he belonged there, which was just a sight for sore eyes. I'm sure there's more, but that's like the ones I have off the top.
Yeah, Mikey with that big hit on the sideline, I think to the backup running back for Denver, just came up and laid a lick on him. And I know it's been said about Mikey for a while now that Mikey, she didn't put the garage down, that Mikey is better as a zone kind of corner. And you kind of saw the evidence of that again last night. And I know John Keim had tweeted out that Washington was much more playing zone, less man coverage than they have previously in games, and you can either attest that to Dan Quinn taking over, or you could be logical and say that that's probably based on them not having man corners out there in Amos and Marshawn Lattimore. But like when we recorded on Friday, or was it Saturday? I don't even remember at this point. It's Friday. I talked about you needed to force Denver to play your game. You couldn't allow them to be explosive. You couldn't allow them to get easy chunk yardage. You had to force them to dink and dunk down the field. And I really thought I saw that come into fruition last night, where they really made it difficult on Denver to be able to do anything, and either offensively or defensively. It's crazy because, I made the joke of Terry just doing cardio, and my goodness, was he goody. Like he was all over the field. And again,
That's
I
when
talked
you said that you said that in the last episode, and as I'm watching the game, I'm just watching this guy running routes and running long routes, and I'm like, this is pretty funny that this is happening right now.
because I said that one thing he doesn't get credit for is his ability to go over the middle, and we saw that again last night. He ended with 7 receptions, 96 yards, 1 touchdown on 14 targets. You could say that 50% is probably not great, but I think a lot of those weren't really his fault, so to speak. But he came up huge. Like, it's not just a long game that he really excels at. It's being able to help you move the chains. Where that first catch that he has, it's that quick slant, and it's on Surtain, and he's able to get a clean break on it, has the space in between him and Surtain, and he's able to catch that football, and the safety comes up, has a lick on him, dude. And guess what Terry does? He just bounces right off of it and keeps running. And it
Yeah.
just speaks to his toughness. There's been so many hits over the years where he takes these collisions, and he just gets up. He doesn't drop the football. He does his thing. And I loved how you brought up Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks had 1 reception for 5 yards in that touchdown, and what a touchdown that was. I know Ian Rappaport tweeted out that surgery that he had his hand on is the one he caught it with, which is just
Yeah.
hysterical. But just like the way football is, he catches that football with one hand, falling backwards. I say it's the play of the year for Washington at this point. But then later on in the game, there's a ball where it hits him in both hands, and he doesn't catch it. And it's
Yeah.
like, what is going on here? But
Yeah.
overall, I think Bobby Wagner deserves a lot of credit, and I don't think it's purely based on what he did on that interception. Obviously, Bo Nix did not see Bobby down there, and Bobby obviously caught it. But there was one play in particular. It was a 3rd down late in the game, and you saw Bobby run up to Jacob Martin. And he runs up to Jacob Martin, and you see him pulling on his shoulder pad. He's telling him something. And then so Bobby steps back. They snap the football, and the tight end, I believe it was a tight end, runs like a shallow dig. It's a really shallow hitch route, you could say. I don't know exactly the term of that play, but he runs it, and Jacob, off the line of
That's when he
scrimmage,
drops directly into the zone, right where he's sitting.
drops right
Yeah.
into it, abrupts the receiver, and then stops him enough to where the timing is off. And when I have spoken, because people wanted Bobby benched, and they said that, he's old, he's slow, which, look, those are 2 facts, okay? It's okay. He's my age. I get it. We're old, slow men. I get it. He's probably way faster than me at this point. But just saying that on the field coaching is not something you're going to get out of Jordan McGee right away. That's something that has to be built over time. That savviness is so crucial and important and valuable, and that kind of play is a sign of that. And which
Yeah.
is, I think, speaks a lot to what Bobby does and what he is. And the fact that he read that exactly what was going to happen, he knew what Sean Payton wanted to do there, read it like a book, and put Jacob Martin in a position to make a play, and he absolutely did. So I think Bobby deserves a hell of a lot of credit. He had a fantastic game. This defense had a fantastic game. Luvu looked like himself on that sack. Although in overtime, I thought that last touchdown run was it wasn't poor effort on Bobby's part, but I did think it was poor effort on Frankie's part. When you watch that replay, Frankie just has his hand on the lineman standing there as the running back is running into the end zone, and it's like
Yeah.
I would like to see a little bit more of a play.
A
Like
little something. There's
you're
a
on
lot
the
of fatigue there. You can see the fatigue. Yeah.
exactly after that long catch that was put on Bobby, right? Like that's one of those plays. It's like I would like to see a little bit more. I understand why, but that's what Dan Quinn calls winning time moments, right? So those guys definitely they deserve credit. They did a great job. But the other one I'll bring up is Chris Rodriguez, man. Chris Rodriguez, I call him the C train. The way he runs that football, like Adrian, like that Adrian Peterson video. When I seen him throw that ball, when I see him run that football, it's 100 mile an hour. He just runs over people. That touchdown run is is emblematic of what he kind of epitomizes as a running back. And just running straight downhill, just bulldozing over people. And I think Chris Rodriguez is somebody that not as of late, but he's shown this a lot this year. But just his ability just to hit the hole and go is something that is very crucial to this offense because that running game last night was huge. Even though
They
Marcus,
spoke about a lot in the offseason about how he came in slimmer, lost some weight to get his quickness up. And the hearing that in training camp and off season versus seeing the actual result is pretty sweet. That doesn't always correlate that way. So you could definitely tell he made that a huge focus. And like you said, he has this juice when he gets through the hole. And he's just straight line, like a train, like you said. But the way he runs too, the speed and the quickness aside, and the strength and the power aside, just the awareness has been really standing out with his running game.
absolutely, dude. And obviously the offensive line themselves deserve a lot of credit. Badass had a fantastic block on that Chris Rodriguez touchdown where he turns that middle linebacker, able to get to the second level, which opens up that lane for Chris Rodriguez. It's crazy because the NFL is so detailed where it truly is a game of inches. And if you don't make that play, it's not a touchdown. And like as much as like it's hard for me because when you watch the All 22, you kind of see things for what they are. And you see when you watch it live, you're like, oh, great, that happened. We got the touchdown. I'm happy about it. But when you go back and watch it, you're like, there's so much that had to go into that just for that play to happen. And to think that a team has to make probably 20 to 30 of those to win the football game. And going against other pro athletes, it's honestly insane how difficult the NFL is. But hat tip to those boys. They did a fantastic job. The offensive line. And like Josh Connerly only allowing one pressure on the night.
Yeah, he was big on that run too. He was big on that run
absolutely.
as well.
He deserves a lot of credit for where he is right now. Obviously, he went through the gauntlet and for good reason. But that's somebody who was getting picked on a lot. And obviously, you know that Goody as much as everybody else. And it's hard for offensive linemen to kind of prove themselves as to why they were selected where they were. But I think last night is a good indication for Josh Connerly to say that's why he's here. You're going against one of the best pass rushing units, defense in the league, and you're still able to get the job done. For example, late in that game, Washington is trying to get down the field to get the touchdown. And it's not just a touch. They end up kicking the field goal. But that's a situation where you're in a one-dimensional scenario. So it's very easy for them to pin their ears back, get after your quarterback. And that wasn't a thing. You weren't overly concerned. You were more concerned that Marcus Mariota was going to try to jump pass it again.
Yeah.
I said it. I said it on Twitter last night, Goody. I was like, man, what if Mariota stops playing like Brucey from the longest yard? I think Washington has a very good chance in this game. And that interception. Look, I have to give credit to Marcus. This is a very good defense. Of course, it's a very good defense. But like that play in particular, obviously he talked about in his post game presser that he was trying to get it out of bounds, was hit as he threw, which I get it. I totally do. But it's just like why? Like why?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Marcus always has that one play where you're just like, why?
You could see it happening as he was climbing the pocket after kind of having nowhere to go, and there was just like a glitch, and then he just jumps and he just lofts it, and you're like, no. Red zone. I think it was in the red zone or right outside the red zone on a good drive. It was tough. That was a tough pill to swallow early in the game, but
It is what it is, man. It's another one of those situations. Look, I can't get mad at Marcus the way he played. There were some later, especially later in the game, there were some overthrows that were constant in some crucial situations when you really needed them to. But the hilarious part is I was on Twitter last night, obviously during the game, like I always am. And I was like, if they ever need a turnover, right now is that time that they need it. And that's when that Bobby pick came up. And not Robert Griffin III on Twitter. If you're not following not RG3 on Twitter, you need to. He's hilarious. And he wrote, a what? Like, because like he kind of knew that there was no turnover coming. They ended up getting the turnover. But he was like, do it for a touchdown now. And so I said, all right, if they've ever needed it, and they need a touchdown right here. And of course they didn't get it. I told him, I was like, I failed you. But
seems like we always get those interceptions of that specific part of the field too.
Which is weird.
Like just from like the 50 until like the 30 opposite 35, it always seems like we always get that interception in that little ballpark. It's strange.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say this year, the times that we have gotten turnovers, it's been few and far between, of course. But it's like in a point at a time where it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah.
But like the Chargers forced fumble, you could say was what really turned the tide in that game.
That was timely. Yeah, that was definitely timely.
And Bobby's obviously was as well. That was something they obviously needed. The offense needed to pick me up. But we talked about him a little bit earlier in Terry, where that's Terry time. Is late in the game. You need to get down the field. You need a play to happen. You go to 17. And I loved his response in his post-game, not presser, but he talked to reporters and saying that I was on a snap count, but we're in this football game. I'm going in. And that's what you want to see from a guy who just signed a big contract. Like as much as I want to see him be handled with kid gloves, but this is a man's sport, and this is what he said. My team needs me. I need to be out there. I always go back to that Gene Hackman quote from The Replacements where he says, winners want the ball in their hands, and that's Terry McLaurin. He wanted to be on the field. He wanted the ball in his hands. He wanted to help this team win. It sucks that the big touchdown didn't happen for him with the holding play on Connerly, which I can't fault Connerly. That dude's bend around was incredible.
Yeah. And it was almost not even like the guy was basically falling and he was almost holding him up. Like if he had not wrapped him, around the upper pads, he probably would have just fell on the ground.
You're absolutely right.
He was bent.
Like, have you ever seen those videos of professional motorcycle racing, right? Where
when they're around
when they're going around the turn, their knees basically touching the asphalt. Like that's what that dude was doing there, and it was insane. Because to be honest with you, if Connerly doesn't hold him, I honestly do believe he gets at Mariota's feet, and I think that Connerly made the right decision. It's just you don't in that situation. To your point, Goody. You don't need to hook him. Like you can just push him into the ground. You drive him into the ground at that point because he's lost his leverage a little bit. But just force him down there because his balance isn't there. So Connerly is going to get better as he goes. But that's one situation where I can't fault Connerly for doing that. But Washington, and I love the decision to go for 2. I had no issue with it. I know that Yam and others were disgusted at before halftime for Washington with 16 seconds left with 2 timeouts. Not trying to go
I kept seeing that too, and I'm just like, I don't really see the urgency to do like any antics right now. Like what is the and there was a big crowd that was very upset about that. I just couldn't really understand it. I was just like, man, like let's get in the locker room. Let's rest up. Let's hydrate. Let's look at what we worked on. Like the team was playing good. It was a good game. Like, why are you trying to go out and do, something like that and getting bent out of shape about it?
Exactly. And look, I know you have two timeouts, but you're going against one of the best defenses in the league that when you are one dimensional, they get after you and they're able to make something happen. You already saw Mariota throw an interception. So with 16 seconds left and two timeouts, I said this to Yam on Twitter. I was like, out of all the things to complain about this season, this probably isn't one of them. Uh, in terms of being smart about things, you'd be lucky to get to the 50 with 1 second left. To be perfectly honest with you, you're asking for your wide receivers to gain depth on a defense that knows you're passing. They're very good in pass coverage, and they have a very good pass rush situation on their hands. So you are dealing with disaster at that point. And I could see it from Dan Quinn's perspective to say, I like where we are right now. We're going toe to toe with a very good football team. I don't want to tip the scales. I don't want to put us in a situation where we turn over the football and they're able to get a field goal before halftime when we get the ball back after the half. And so I don't have any, I don't fault Dan Quinn. I actually agreed with him in that sense that you don't go for that. You just kneel it. Let's go. Let's get the heck out of here and let's come back at halftime and be able to make something happen. So there's things to complain about. That certainly wasn't one of them for me personally. But overall, Will Harris, I know his return. We talked about Terry already. Will Harris was getting beat up on Twitter last
Yeah.
night. Goody, what did you think of his play?
It was like just from the eye test watching the game, you could kind of see that they were really trying to pick on him a little bit, see how healthy he really was. He was a little bit sluggish, a little rusty, a little behind by a step or two. Early on, it was noticeable. I think as the game went on, obviously the kind of natural instincts kicked in with the adrenaline, and he kind of settled in. Um, but yeah, no, definitely enjoyed watching him out there. Thankfully, just off the strength of him being back on the field first and foremost. In terms of his performance, I can't really take anything away from it negative. The guy's just getting his legs underneath him, literally. Um, and yeah, he performed, and that's just another testament, right? The defense, the eye test for the defense was again on a transition, transcending upwards from when we were in Spain against the Dolphins. Having him on the field, definitely has to play a part in that as well. So, I think Will Harris getting back for that first week was great. It's going to be nice to see him finish the season. And then kind of, we talked about this a few times, but seeing what pieces you have now on the roster, being able to see them instead of them being, wrapped up on the side on the bench and out of the games. Now you get to have a really good idea of what you have to do moving forward in the off season, so on and so forth. So Will Harris out there last night was an awesome thing to watch.
Yeah, look, there's a little bit of rust there, of course, but also give credit to the Broncos. And specifically with Will Harris, I know what Dan Quinn talked about his tackling, which is something we kind of talked about in last episode, that was one area where we were going to see a better situation come from this defense is with the tackling. And with only 87 yards rushing, you can look at it and say, Will Harris had a lot to do with that. So overall, I think Will Harris, as much as everyone is getting on him, like I saw people saying, why isn't Savage up for this game? And to be perfectly honest with you guys, Savage isn't that good. Like we had to play him. That's the situation that was in the cards. Right now, you don't need to play Savage. You have Will Harris back. You have a lot of confidence in him, and you've seen better production. As much as I like having Savage on here, being a Maryland boy, where I grew up, of course, but I don't think that he is good enough to be able to warrant being healthy when you have other guys that play special teams. So looking at it to say, well, Will Harris shouldn't even be out. Like, Will Harris, that's one thing with football, Goody, is there is a leadership aspect and something that happens in a confidence level that an offense has when somebody plays a certain way. And I think Will Harris kind of epitomizes that. I think Bobby Wagner epitomizes that at times. And that's not something that you can replicate. So as much as we want to hop on Will Harris for how he was last night, overall the defense was good. And you have to give credit to Evan Ingram, man. That guy is a very good
Yeah,
ball player.
he's gonna get his no matter what. And there wasn't even like he was getting a lot of his production specifically from Will Harris or specifically
Right.
from Bobby. You know, he was fortunate. He was able to get mixed into it in the beneficial areas for them. So kudos to them. But again, Bobby and Will Harris, he played well. What do you expect? The guy hasn't been on the field in 9 weeks or something like that. So
All right, let me ask you this question.
yep.
And this was a tough one to write. But based on how the game ended, which side of the football lost them the game? Offense or defense?
I'm gonna go with offense.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna go
What?
with offense. Um, I mean, for the most part, we had a lot of possessions, right? The possessions were pretty balanced throughout the game. Um, the offense played great. The offense moved well. Um, but in order to win those games, you have to be able to score more points than the other team, right? That's a simple thing. Um, if the offense was able to not punt the ball away a few times, really put the pressure on Denver more than they already felt because them getting behind on a 3-win team, I'm sure there's enough pressure in that in itself. But if we had kept scoring and putting up touchdowns and stuff like that, I think it would have been out of reach for Denver and they would have just spiraled out on themselves. Obviously, the defense played well. The offense for the Broncos isn't very high powered. They can get it done at any time from anywhere, but it takes them a little while to get moving. Once it takes off, then it's hard to kind of catch up with. But the defense played well. But I think if the offense was a little bit more aggressive, had a little bit more fear into the game, then this would have been out of control for Denver to kind of reach up to.
I got you. I do disagree. It is a tough question, but it's a question that needs to be asked because you did lose the football game, right? So there was a loss in there. There was something that happened to lead the other team to be able to win them the football game, right? And us getting the ball in the second possession in overtime, kind of forced it in that way. So with the offense, I don't. The reason why I disagree is that the offense did exactly what they needed to in this game. You're going against one of the best defenses in the NFL. They produced enough points. I think Denver on average going into the game only gave up 17 points per game. So going into that overtime, what we tied it up at 20, I think was.
20, yeah.
So they got north of that with the situation that they have with the injuries. They did a good job. They did their job. Now let's go into overtime. I talked about it on the last show. You have to make it difficult on Denver's offense to move the football. You cannot give them easy chunk plays. And those I think it was 5 plays in overtime that they ran to get that touchdown is unacceptable. Like that is the winning time moment that Dan Quinn talks about, and the defense did not come through. They
Yeah.
were a hot knife through butter. They were just ran right through. Denver did whatever the heck they wanted, and that's one of those situations where if you're looking for anything as to why this game ended the way it did, in my personal opinion, it is because it's the defense. Right at that moment, they played a great game up to that. Trust me, I loved what I saw from them defensively. But if you're looking for a reason to say why did they lose the game, it's that defensive possession in overtime where they made it easy on Denver. And that cannot be the case in a winning
Yeah.
time moment. I
That was too
understand.
easy.
I
Too
understand
easy.
it's late at night. Trust me, I'm sitting on my couch. I shouldn't have any I shouldn't have any issue with you running out in 30-degree weather. It's damn near midnight and you're out there playing football. I get it. But I'm just saying if we're having to put a label on it to say where was the loss happen, in my personal opinion, it wasn't at overtime, made it way too easy on Denver instead of possibly forcing them to kick a field goal like they had done earlier in the game. But the offense you can't fault. They went down there. They scored probably, 3 touchdowns that were probably called back, obviously. But
Wild.
absolutely wild.
Wild.
But like the offense did their job, and they had to go for 2. And you have to give credit to Nick Bonito for what he was able to do. Obviously, that tip on Marcus Mariota was fantastic and athletic play by that young man, but he didn't make many plays last night. And I think a lot of credit to the offensive line for doing that. So if you're going to point it anywhere, it's the defense just in that one possession. They played a great game for 60 minutes. That last 15, that's where
Yeah.
the issue lies for
No,
me
that was
personally.
rough. That was rough. That was very reminiscent of early season Washington defense. It was hard to watch that.
It wholeheartedly was. Absolutely. Now let's get into some fan questions. Hall is trying to set up. He fell asleep putting the baby to bed. Whatever you say, dude. Which isn't surprising with Hall. He has a knack for passing out. But the first question from the Colonel: Do you think Goody? Do you think if Jaden had played against Denver yesterday, would we have won?
Uh,
That's a good
I
question.
mean, yeah, I'm gonna say you can't really tell just because of the data that we have from this season alone. Mind you, Mariota started about what 5, 6 games for us this year, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got one win. So is it 1-4, 1-5, something like that? But even when Jaden was playing throughout weeks 1 through 2, 3, here and there was a noticeable difference in the offense when Mariota was actually getting the nod for the start. It looked like it was moving in a timely fashion. We were moving the ball up and down the field. Everything just looked better. And that's, mind you, without having necessarily your starting wide receivers and, people still banged up. So to say if Jaden was there last night playing versus what Mariota was able to do with our offense, it's hard to say that we would have definitely won. There weren't too many situations where Mariota did not kind of handle the situation at hand because you can only do so much, right? So even if Jaden was in those situations, whether he would execute, one or two more times out of the amount that Mariota, it's hard to say. So I'm not going to say yes, but I would say possibly.
So I didn't find you to be a hypothetical man, Colonel, but it's you learn something new every day. This is it's a butterfly effect type of scenario that we're talking about. And do I ultimately know? No, I think this is an impossible question to say. But just in spirit of the question, I'll say that the one thing about Jaden is he does have ice in his veins. And in the pre-draft process, I wrote this about Jaden that he is a sniper. He is a sharpshooter. And evidence of this is that throw to Terry against the Bengals, the throw to Diami Brown against Detroit, right? Where deep downfield, he just has a knack for putting that football in the perfect, absolute perfect location. And there was a couple throws by Mariota in that game last night where he overthrows guys, where there were opportunities for things. And I'm not going to say that it would have been a touchdown. It would have been a completion if Jaden threw it. But what my point is, the reason why flags weren't thrown on that play was because it was an overthrow. You can't throw that pass interference flag on a ball that's uncatchable, right? So, like,
Yeah.
that's a situation where you want that ball in a relative space to where it is catchable. And that overthrow might have cost you yards. It costed you maybe some points here or there. And I do think that that's one area where Jaden might have gotten you just a little bit more. Do I think that Jaden would have been able to put that ball over the fingertips of Nick Bonito? I do. Mariota is a big dude, without a doubt. He is. He's a big dude, and he could get the job done, of course. But I think I think Jaden in particular just has a freaking crazy knack for those situations and ice in his veins, and he gets the job done when it's not raining, of course, which still bugs me to this day. But I do think there's a little bit of a difference with Jaden. It's hard to answer this question, Colonel, it being a hypothetical. But ultimately, I'll always go with either one of those guys. We should have won that game. If the overtime rules were different, I think we would have continued to go. We would have kicked the field goal. But I also believe that they wanted to win. And that's commendable in itself. And so as much as we want to put the point blame here or there, I think that things are meant to happen a certain way. And Washington did a very good job making that a game. And I'm not going to point it and say Jaden could have or could have not, but I think that we did everything we possibly could as an offense. Because to your point,
Just to be clear, the overtime rules say if we did kick the field goal and tie it up, it just goes basically until the remaining time.
right, and we only had two
It's not,
minutes left.
yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Absolutely tough. And given with how the defense came out in the first
Yeah.
in the first possession of overtime, I can
Yeah,
understand
Dan was like,
wholeheartedly.
"Yeah, nah, we're not doing that. Let's get out of here."
Yeah, Bobby's nodding off at the sideline right now. We're out of smelling salts. I don't know what we're gonna do here. So like it's a great hypothetical. I can't answer that 100%, Colonel. The next one from the Colonel is from his questions about DQ. Goody. DQ is getting a lot of flack for the 2-point conversion attempt. Personally, I would have done the same thing. What are your thoughts? I mean, we kind of just answered that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm going for it. I'm going for it.
absolutely. You always
That's
go
it.
for the win.
Yeah, you're at home. You got them back against the wall. The whole nation is watching you. Put an end to it. But and again, we would have walked out of there with a big W, shocked the world. It was just those Benito didn't cut his fingernails before the game. So
Yeah, and look, I have no fault for Quinn going for it there. You have to think about how many roadblocks they faced in that last fourth quarter where they bled the clock out completely in order to get that field goal. They have that touchdown given up by defense in overtime. They then have the penalties happen on the Terry touchdown. And then you're sitting there saying, all right, dude, is this actually going to happen? They finally get the touchdown to Terry. You can complain all you want about it being a pick play. It wasn't, in my personal opinion. That is just a very good route and execution by Debo because as the wide receiver, you have to commit to a route. You can't just run into a defender because that is a pick. You have to commit to running a route. Now, if your route obstructs the DB while you're running it, that's clean. And that's essentially what Debo did there. I was going back and forth with Benjamin Albright. He feels differently, but, bless his heart. But I have no fault with them doing it. You have them on their heels. You have had everything try to stop you from winning this football game. Go for it. Like, you got them on their heels. You got the momentum now. You have really shown the determination, really, to get the job done. And the play was there. I mean, it absolutely was there. It was just off the fingertips, man. Right off the fingertips. And give
yeah,
credit to Denver. I have no fault for DQ. And I think a lot of it has to do with how much time was left, Colonel, and how the defense came out in overtime. So as much as anyone wants to give flack for DQ for going for two, that was the right decision. When you look at the context and the subject matter of the situation, that was the right thing to go with. And I said as soon as it started out with that possession, I said, we get a touchdown, we're going for two. Like, you go for the
yeah,
win.
you have to. You have to. You have to.
Yeah, there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it, sir. Next question from the Colonel. I was curious of Emmanuel Forbes' supposed resurgence with the LA Rams. So I watched the Carolina Panthers game yesterday and watched him get torched for 2 touchdowns. What am I missing?
Maybe it was just a bad week for Forbes. I mean, obviously the
For the
Rams didn't
Rams.
expect. Yeah, for the Rams. They didn't expect to go in there and get beat down. I mean, most people didn't expect the Panthers, even as good as the Panthers have been playing this season, nobody expected it to go down like that. But yeah, I would just say it's a bad week for the Rams, bad week for Forbes. Panthers are sneaky good. They're hot. They got their stuff going on. He's shown up, weeks prior. Yeah, just gotta chalk it up. He's a cornerback in the NFL. He's gonna get beat. You can't just put under a microscope anytime he gets beat and then just assume that he's like Ron Rivera's bust that he drafted kind of thing. So he had a bad week. He got beat. His team got beat. His team is still winning. His team's probably gonna be in the playoffs. He's got a lot more football to look forward to.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where you play at a top level, right? And the Rams, I'm going to be point blank and say they were probably overlooking Carolina. They were feeling themselves. They had just beat the Bucks. They were feeling pretty good. I'm pretty sure they have another great game next week. I don't know 100% who it is against, but I know that it's a tough opponent. Wouldn't be crazy to think that they were overlooking the Panthers. And Jalen Coker and Bryce Young really took advantage of Emmanuel Forbes. And you have to tip your cap. Like, I got into it with Uncle Ronnie on Twitter yesterday because, like everyone else, they want to get on Jalen Lane for dropping that football early in the game. My point being is, as a secondary coach, that Riley Moss played that the exact way you're supposed to play that as a DB. He didn't obstruct the route. He didn't obstruct the catch. You wait for that football. When you see the eyes come up of the wide receiver and you see the eyes and the hands come up, you attack that area. You attack that. And that's exactly what he did. He punched that ball out right out of Jalen's hands. And as much as we want to get on Jalen Lane for not catching that football, that's a hat tip to the DB for having perfect execution on that. Which, in reverse, you look at what Treylon Burks did, right? That location of the football by Marcus Mariota had the ball way up here. And Riley Moss's hand is down at Treylon Burks' chest. There's no chance for Riley Moss to have a play on that football. But based on where the football was located, Jalen had to come down here to get it, and Riley Moss had a play on it. And so there's a lot of determining factors that go along with it. So I think that you just have to give a hat tip to Bryce Young and Jalen Coker for having very good execution. There's no reason to pile on Emmanuel Forbes. He's not with the Commanders anymore. And so you're going to get beat, like you said, Goody. This is the NFL. There's phenomenal athletes freaking everywhere. And you're going to get yours, they're going to get theirs. And you just take it for what it is, and you keep chugging. And I respect Emmanuel Forbes for what he's done and being able to research his career. I don't want that guy like being depressed for the rest of his life because of his NFL career. But so I'm happy.
At least where
for
it started.
Right. Like I'm happy for him. Like, yeah, the way that I never want to see an athlete literally get emotional like he was in that Eagles game against A.J. Brown. Like, that was legitimately heartbreaking to see an athlete do, especially at this level. Like, dumbfounded, just utterly exhausted, just looking for answers.
They put him in a bad spot.
He needed therapy after that, man. And I seriously, I felt so bad for the kid. And I don't want to see that for him. So I'm not sure you're missing anything, Colonel, except for the fact that this is the NFL. It's going to happen. People talk about Patrick Surtain being the best DB in football, and he obviously is. Him and what's it called? Not Sauce Gardner, Stingley.
Samuel. Oh, Stanley. Stingley.
Yeah, Stingley and Houston. They're obviously very good, but there's sometimes they get beat, and it's okay. That happens. Yeah. Terry got his. Coker got his. It is what it is, and you move on. You keep chugging, and people are going to forget about it in 2 weeks. Right. Just another thing. Next question from Tony Franchise. Goody. Tough loss. However, I think this may have been the best the offense looked all season against one of the best defenses in the league. What say you guys?
Yeah, the offense looked like we knew what we wanted to do and we knew how to do it. And that whole game was very it reminded me a lot of last year's team in terms of how the game plan all week. They went into it with confidence. They worked on it. They pretty much figured it out what they wanted to do and how they're going to execute. The offense looked awesome. The play calling was great. The balance between the run game, the pass, even the quarterback design runs that he loves to draw up with Mariota back there. Everything was moving forward. We didn't have too many penalties, costly, which was, beneficial. The refs kind of did, do us a little, I'm not even going to say dirty. I'm just going to say just downright, like, they need to be looked at because it was just bad, and especially in the timing of the situations. But, the offense probably the best we played all season, hands down.
Yeah, and it's easy to see why Marcus is trying to get that football out. This is a very good pass rush unit, and he wants to get that ball out. He doesn't want to take a sack, and I credit to Marcus. It's just crazy to me that the command center, whatever the hell it's called, that they have in New York of the officiating, can't call in to the refs before the next play to say, hey, you got that wrong. It wasn't intentional grounding. He was outside the numbers. Gene Steratore is in the booth in the same stadium as you, and he just said it on live TV. And now everyone knows it. There's nobody doing that for that. The other one is the tripping call.
Yes.
How come
crazy
we have this review system and there's some plays where a flag can get thrown based on a review, but a play like that can't? What are we doing here? This is a billion.
Honestly,
$1 billion business.
Umpire is right behind him.
Yeah.
He's right behind the quarterback. You see that the pocket is collapsing. You see that the quarterback is scrambling out and he's stumbling. You don't see that the guy is literally sticking his leg out, but you're looking at something else. I forgot what the call was on that they were looking at. That was with the pass interference. Um, when he was throwing and he pretty much fell, and then he got McNichols got pushed in the back. I think is that the
Yeah.
same play?
No, that
Yeah,
was a different one.
that was a different play. Okay.
So that was the one where he escapes upfield and he throws. I think they got intentional grounding on us for that one because Mariota escapes. They think that, oh, yeah, he falls. No, what happens is he falls down. And at first, Mariota was acting like he didn't get touched. And so he kept running, and they called it back, and they said, no, 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 you're coming back. And that's when the tripping gets shown on the review. And so it shouldn't have been a sack. It should have been plus 15 for Washington in a first set of downs. And that's where the kind of discrepancy is. It's funny. I saw a guy on Twitter say Marcus Mariota got bailed out of an interception for a defensive pass interference. It's like, wait a minute. That wouldn't have been a pick if it wasn't for the defensive pass interference. Like, you can't phrase it that way. That's not fair to Marcus. Okay, that was just a illegal play that resulted in a pick. It's not because he was bailed out whatsoever. So what I'll say is the offense overall, Tony, I would say that this was the most balanced that they have been. They finished the game winning in first downs. Denver had 23 first downs. Washington had 30. On third downs, we were 8 of 17, so just south of 50%. On fourth down, we were 3 for 3. We had 276 passing yards, 143 rushing yards, which is above the average that Broncos typically give up on defense. And then the red zone, we were 3 for 5 in the red zone. We were above 500. That's exactly, or 50%. That's exactly what you want out of your offense. They did a very good job of being able to execute down there. I think the one being taken off is based on the interception by Mariota. Then the other one is time of possession. They had 35 minutes of time of possession in this game. So that tells you the balance was there. They were able to keep Denver guessing. They weren't able to pin their ears back. And so I would agree with you. This was the best the offense has looked. And I think a lot of it has to do with Terry being back, with having Debo there, getting some very crucial situational yardage. Jeremy McNichols just finding a way to, on third down, I call him a third down hero. He just seems to always make a play in those situations. Terry coming through in the clutch. Debo helping you move the chain, just being that extra piece underneath. Zach Ertz making plays.
When you say that the offense is probably the most balanced that it's been, it's like when you think about the actual style that we played yesterday in terms of being able to run the ball efficiently, the quick passing game was lethal for us. We also were able to get the ball down the field as well. So in terms of the offense being balanced, like we were hitting on every cylinder in terms of offense. We could basically do as we please, and even converting on third downs and such like that. So the offense was it was phenomenal yesterday. It looked really good. Cliff was in his bag. Mariota was confident. Terry being back, the whole offense was probably just pumped up. Like let's go and do this. But again, just fell a little bit short.
Absolutely. And so a lot of hat tip to Cliff. They obviously took the bye week and they put it to good reason. And they did a good job of being able to pregame for this game. And besides the script, they did a phenomenal job of calling things. I could do a little bit less with the designed quarterback runs and the Debo runs, which I think Debo had like -2 yards rushing on the day. What's crazy is they ran for 143 yards on this defense, and their leading rusher was Mariota. Obviously, Chris Rodriguez left the game with 41 yards on 11 carries, averaged 3.7 on the ground. I think McNichols and Bill ended with 5 yards on average per carry. So they did, as a collective, they've done a very good job of that rotation. But overall, I think this is the best balanced we have seen this offense so far this season, of being able to hit downfield, moving the chains, and being able to execute in the red zone. That's number one, man. And got back to what it was like last season, where we're 3 for 3 on fourth down, willing to gamble and go for it. And Ertz proving again to be vital in those situations. So a lot of credit to the offense. This was by far the best that they have looked. And Deluxe, you are correct. The Denver linebacker, that was Singleton, who had testicular cancer removed a month ago, is the one who knocked that ball out on Ertz. Like, that's not a bad play on Ertz. That is a phenomenal play by that linebacker. You have to
Yeah.
imagine, he's running a seam. That linebacker has to turn and run with Ertz. You can make a point, an argument to say Ertz is not who he was, right? He's a Bobby Wagner of offense. But that's a phenomenal play by that linebacker. Read the eyes, read the hands when they catch that football, punch it out. And that's exactly what he did. A lot of credit to
Yeah,
him.
he makes that play all the time, Zach Ertz, right?
Yep.
But when you look at it, especially when it's slow it down and they look at the linebacker put his hand in the absolute perfect spot for where he was coming down to bring it into his body to brace his fall. It was like the perfect timing, whereas he was bringing it down, his fist was coming up at the same exact spot. So it was almost just it's almost impossible how perfect of a play he made defensively.
Yeah, and the one I can't give an excuse for is
There's
the
in the end zone.
the end zone one. I
Yeah,
know I
that's
know
tough.
Ertz was beating himself up over it, and as well as he should. But man, he definitely needed the Clifford Franklin stickum on that one.
That's 2 weeks in a row now. You know, last week he slipped over in Madrid, and this week he just kind of just jumped and just didn't squeeze it. But
Coach, it looked like I jacked off an elephant. All right, now the next question from Tim Towner in the Discord goodie. Let's have the Mariota conversation. He may know the offense, but at $10 million a year, you don't get to shit the bed once a game. Do you bring him back next year for another $10 million, or do you make a lower offer, or just cut bait, redirect the cash, or go pull in another washed a quarterback?
that's a little rough. I'm not gonna. You can't call him washed. I mean, the guy's out here performing, but in terms of like, I mean, they always speak about the position, right? In comparison to all kind of sports, how the quarterback is the most important position in all of sports, right? So you're gonna pay for that. You got to pay for that. You know, you don't just kind of get by with, making it work, right? So if you have something that works, you're gonna invest in that. You're gonna want to make sure you have that. Obviously, you have a franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels. If he's not able to go for whatever the reason may be, you got to have somebody in there that you know can take the wheel, right? And again, last year we had more of a confidence in Mariota considering his results versus this year, whereas the results in the win and loss column isn't the same. But in terms of the actual product on the field, you can't tell me you're going to find another backup quarterback that's going to kind of move the offense like that. If it's not broke, you don't fix it kind of thing. And I think in terms of what we have in Washington with Mariota as the backup, it's not broke. The question is kind of asking, is assuming we have control over everything, but he ultimately has the say in what he wants to do. If he wants to be here next year, if he wants to go and try to get a starting job somewhere else. But for me, I would bring him back. 10 mil, whatever the market is or whatever that bargaining, I don't really know. I would inquire to bring him back without a doubt. Whether he wants more money or not, that's a whole different story. But you can't be upset with having Mariota as your backup after what we've seen so far.
Yeah, because you have to ask yourself this question, Tim. When you go looking for a backup quarterback, are you looking for somebody that can play a big number of games in case of emergency and to perform like a regular starting quarterback, right? Or are you looking for a spot starter, somebody that could come in for one game and hold water for you? That's what Marcus does. He holds water for you. Yes, he does crap the bed, right? But let's not mince or disparage a guy. He can still play, and he's doing a damn good job at it. Just overall, the team itself is suffering right now. Defense wasn't helping him out in his starts this year. But I'll ultimately say is if he doesn't want to play anymore, I think you bring back Marcus as a coach, to be perfectly honest with you. I think he has really taken the mentor side of football and really coveted it and done a great job. I'm not sure if Tavita would try to steal him away if that was the case. But I think Marcus is somebody that understands the game of football very well. He just I don't know why he has a fascination with jumping and wanting to get as high as he possibly can at every single moment of every single game. But once that gets knocked out, he's great, man. It's just he makes it's you have friends like that just that just do stupid stuff at times.
Yeah,
But
we all do.
you still love him. You still love him, right? It doesn't take it away, right? So I'll say, I think that with Mariota, there is probably going to be a pay cut based on what needs to happen in the offseason. If Mariota truly believes in this program and he wants to see this program flourish, knowing where he is at with his age, I would venture to say that I'm not sure if he'd be offered a starting job somewhere else. I think that he did have those offers last offseason, so which might have brought his price up. So I do think at a little bit of a cut rate, not crazy amount, but a cut rate, I think that he should come back. And my sister-in-law at Thanksgiving asked me, she goes, do you have Sam Hartman's number? And I was like, why would I have Sam Hartman's number? Like, and I told her, I was like, well, you have to fight my mom over it if I did have it. But no, I don't. But like, do you trust Sam Hartman in that situation? Do you trust Josh Johnson to do what Mariota did for this many games? No. And that's what you're kind of dealing with here. And I would go down the route of what, if you had to, what the 49ers have done. And that is get somebody that's a high value pick that was highly coveted, that has been pushed aside, and try to see if you could work with them a little bit.
Who would you name if you had two choices? Who would you name?
Well, it's tough to say because you don't know who's going to be released or let go of, right? But one thing I will say is you want your backup quarterback to have very similar play style as your starting quarterback. So the Ravens, for example, the Ravens lost Lamar for a couple games this season. They brought in what's his name? Former quarterback
Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush, right? Cooper Rush does not have the same play style as Lamar. And you saw their offense putter off. I mean, they were just gone. They had no identity whatsoever.
Yeah.
So then they went to Tyler Huntley. And Huntley was actually able to make things happen. It's because Huntley has the same skill set as Lamar. And so they got back to their identity. As the backup quarterback, that's what you want. And so do you have somebody in the league right now that could come in and possess that? I think Malik Willis is somebody that you could feel really comfortable with as a backup quarterback. I know Green Bay absolutely loves him at this point. He's proven to be very good. But that's somebody I would have my eye on if the situation arose. I also believe mightily in Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston is a great guy and quarterback, and I didn't know that he was that good of a receiver, to be perfectly honest with you, like we saw in that game. I was blown away by it. Jameis is hitting a spin move. What is happening? Is this 2025?
Jameis can do anything he wants to do.
Great dude, man. So those are a couple guys. I'd have to look at the list overall. But you want the same similar skill set as your quarterback. The running ability to use his legs downfield, the sharpshooter moving north and south. You don't want to have to adapt the offense a crazy amount for your backup to come in. And that's why Marcus is very valuable to this football team. He offers the similar skill set to what Jaden can do. And you saw it last night with him leading in rushing yards. You're seeing the same similar output based on that play style. And it's nothing bad to say about Jaden whatsoever. It's just Marcus has, and that's why the offense works. The next question from Chris Comerton. We'll go rapid fire here, Goody. I know we got to get to bed. What specific cap space limitations or spending priorities might prevent the Commanders from signing a top-tier free agent this offseason?
All right, so I think in terms of like hurdles, the hurdle of the roster being basically a lot of one-year deals from last year is going to be a bit of an issue just because you have a lot of holes to fill. I believe there's probably 20 names that are going to be free agents next year. So that's like almost half of your roster that you have to, first of all, build a team.
And that's not including the guys that could possibly be walked away from to save money, like Marshawn Lattimore.
True. So there's a lot of spots that need to be filled.
Yes.
So in terms of having the cap space, which we do, that's a priority. In terms of going out and signing a significant free agent, I don't see there being an issue with that just because we do have the flexibility, right? Just based off what I said, we have plenty of holes and we do have enough cap space, so we can really do whatever we want. And then I guess the third thing in terms of the question, I would say the only thing that you really have to be prepared for, which I'm sure the franchise is Jaden's contract. When he's, his second contract. So within between those three things, having the amount of holes that we do in free agents pending, um, going out and signing somebody is going to be not a very difficult thing to do. There's plenty of spots to put him, and then just really looking at Jaden's contract when it's that time to come up. So you got to kind of work with those play-dohs and see what you can make.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I talked about it, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, Chris, where we have, I think, over north of 20 guys leaving and only 6 draft picks, like Call told me. And so you're going to have to allocate funds to just bring bodies in. And so you're probably dealing with a lot of those 1-year deals. And when you have a wide variety that you have to bring in, like the Eagles are very easy to be able to throw cash at people to bring in because they have so many draft picks, right? They can replenish. They don't have that many holes to fill. They can throw big money at a certain position to get them in there in order just to fill that spot, right? Like Washington does not have that luxury. So it's going to be difficult for Washington because of how many guys they have to bring in. That money dwindles fast in a quick way. But the one thing that Washington does deserve credit for is they have, based on their contract situation, they don't have a lot of dead cap years. So they have no dead cap years in 2027 and beyond. It's all 25 and 26. So I'm not even sure if that's a correct thing I said. But I just saw the graph for it. Like the Eagles have the dead cap voids like all the way to 2031. Like they are built
Wow.
now. Like they're for now
Wow.
their contract.
Yeah.
So that's why they have a lot of draft picks because they have to be able to spread that out, right? So with Washington, the limitations are you're going to have to re-sign guys. Like Deron Payne could walk away. What are you going to do with Marshawn Lattimore? You walk away from him. What about Debo, right? And I don't think Washington is in the situation where they should be overpaying for a free agent to bring in here at one certain spot. They need help everywhere. And we've seen that this season. The depth is the issue. Last season showcased our strengths. This season highlighted our weaknesses. It showed our depth is lacking. And of course, you build your football team based on every single position getting hurt. And so if your depth is lacking, you got to be able to replenish it. And that either comes from player development or it comes from draft picks. Without a crazy number of draft picks, you are based on and solely hoping that your player development is exceptional.
Has to hit.
We have seen some evidence of Jordan McGee coming up, right? We've seen evidence of Josh Connerly progressing and getting better. We saw Trey Amos come in and be vital for this defense, right? So there is some player development to feel good about, but the younger guys, it's really hard to be able to gauge. And I hate to bring this up, but it didn't take long for us to see how good Cam Curl was as a 7th rounder. He came in and did a lot for you, right? They drafted the dude from Washington and let him go in the second year because he couldn't play safety in the NFL. So that is the reality of the situation, Chris, is that it comes down to the player development and hitting on those draft picks and not wasting any time getting after the young guys and making sure they're progressing to be able to play right away because you don't know what's going to happen in the season. You don't know, and you have to be prepared for it. And without a lot of number of draft picks and with a lot of holes you have to fill, they're going to have a lot of questions going into next season. So that's probably withholding them from using top money on a free agent just to bring in on talent alone. So they're going to have to spread the wealth, so to speak. Very socialist of us. Next question from Deluxe. What player performed better than expected versus Denver? Easy, Deluxe. I think it's Connerly, without a doubt. My boy Terry, coming back from his injury, he looked great, man. Creating space. The one thing everyone always complained about with Terry was his lack of ability to create space against corners, going against Patrick Surtain, and able to create a lot of space. Obviously, one of those was a pick play. But besides that, dude, he performed way better than I think a lot of us were expecting coming back from his injury. And so, hat tip to him. Chris Rodriguez, I think, is another one. The entire offensive line deserves credit for how they played against that front. That is very difficult to do. And so I hat tip to them. They did a phenomenal job. And besides that, I think Mikey also deserves a hat tip for how he played on the outside. The zone coverage is really benefiting him. Him playing on the outside is benefiting him. Thank you. Finally, Mikey's on the outside. I've been screaming this all off season and this season. I am so happy to see Mikey playing on the outside. I cannot stress that enough. And we're seeing evidence of his production on the outside. Now, the next question from Deluxe. What did you think of Terry's post-game interview? Absolutely loved it. We talked about it earlier. Him saying that he wanted, even though he was on a snap count, he wanted to be in the game. That's Terry, man. That's why you pay that man. That's a baller. That's a winner. That's a champion. And he has epitomized that ever since he's been here. It's unfortunate that team overall itself, while he's been here, hasn't lived up to those standards. But hopefully we can get to that road, and players like Terry are going to help you get there. And even though he's 30, he's still making things happen, which is crazy because I was told after 30 you don't do much. But I don't know. What do I know? But good thing that they paid him. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. If you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. I think I lost Goody. Might have been his bedtime. But I appreciate you all. Thank you to Deluxe for being the lone commentator. You're the man. And I actually did not see Yankoff in the backfield. So I'll have to watch it back and see what goes on with that. But I know that that's an area where Senate should be used at, is that fullback kind of area. And honestly, I've been saying this for a while, Deluxe, that they should be using John Bates in the backfield as well. Like, John Bates is literally another lineman. You need to be using him as a fullback. You kind of saw what Denver did last night by leaking their fullback on that third down that picked up the first down. Like, that's where John Bates would be very good at utilizing because of his blocking ability. That's what you're banking on when he's in the game. Why not use that to your advantage from the fullback point of view in going under center and using him there? All right, everybody. Like I said, if you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. I'm so thankful for you guys for commenting, for asking questions. Thank you to the Colonel. Thank you, Tim Towner. Thank you, Chris Comerton. Thank you, Deluxe. Thank you to Goody. Thank you for my two co-hosts for ghosting me tonight. My other two co-hosts. I appreciate you guys. But I'm thankful for this team. Just real quick, just wanted to say ending prayer. Father, please be with anybody that hasn't come to you yet. Father, please be with all those that are dealing with injuries, sicknesses, diseases, and hardships right now in the world, Lord. And anybody watching that hasn't come to you yet, please be with them, soften their heart to come to you, Lord. And thank you for answering my prayers and blessing me and my family as much as you have. I am forever grateful, and I appreciate everything you've done for me, Lord. We love you guys. Amen. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys again on Friday, previewing the Minnesota game, which should be a lot of fun, the Kevin O'Connell reunion. So we'll see you guys then. Have a fantastic week. If you have any questions you want, find me on Twitter, Instagram, doesn't matter. Even on here, if you want to ask it, I'll find it. All right, everybody. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support.